Admiral Kang Wu stared at the holographic display with tired eyes. The blue light from the tactical screen made his face look older than his 45 years. Around him, the bridge of the Coalition flagship Starfall buzzed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations, their voices hushed as they shared bad news. The latest report had just arrived from the Outer Rim. Fleet Admiral Torres and his entire battle group were gone. 37 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts, had been destroyed in less than 6 hours. The Vex bioships had adapted to every weapon the Coalition threw at them. What should have been humanity's greatest victory had become their worst defeat. "Sir," called Commander Lihana from her station. She was the Coalition's best strategic mind, a woman who could see patterns in chaos. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform showed the wrinkles of someone who hadn't slept in days. "The casualty reports are coming in." Kang Wu nodded but didn't look away from the display. Red dots marked Vex positions. They covered half the galaxy now, spreading like a disease through space. Each red dot represented millions of bioships, all controlled by the terrible intelligence they called the Queen Mind. "How many?" he asked. 40,000 dead. Maybe more. Lihana's voice was steady, but Kang Wu could hear the pain beneath it. The Defiant Star managed to send a final transmission before they were overrun. The Vex ships. They learned from our last attack. Our plasma cannons barely scratched their hulls. Kang Wu closed his eyes. 40,000 souls, gone in a single battle. And for what? The Vex kept coming, kept adapting, kept winning. Every time the Coalition forces found a new weapon or tactic, the bioships changed to counter it. They evolved faster than any natural creature should be able to. "What's our current fleet strength?" he asked. "Across all Coalition forces?" Lihana checked her tablet. "Maybe 800 ships still combat-ready. The Astari crystal ships are holding the line at Proxima 7, but they're reporting heavy losses. The Nebulans have pulled their gas giant defenses back to their core systems. And the Karathi—" She paused, and Kang Wu opened his eyes to look at her. "The Karathi are requesting permission to evacuate their remaining colonies. General Siskathar says his people can't hold much longer." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of computers and life support. Every officer knew what this meant. The Karathi were the Coalition's fiercest warriors. If they were talking about evacuation, the war was truly lost. Kang Wu walked to the main view screen. Outside, stars twinkled in the darkness of space. Somewhere, out there, the Vex were coming. Their bioships moved through hyperspace like a living wave, consuming everything in their path. They didn't just destroy worlds. They absorbed them, turning entire planets into breeding grounds for more of their kind. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kim Tae from the communications station, "we're getting calls from the core worlds. They want to know if we're planning a final evacuation." Kang Wu almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Evacuate to where?" The Vex had cut off most escape routes. Even if they could get the civilian populations to safety, there wasn't enough space in the outer systems to support them all. "Tell them we're still fighting," he said. "But, sir, tell them we're still fighting," Kang Wu repeated, his voice harder now. "As long as this ship has power, we don't surrender." Lihana approached him, lowering her voice so the other officers couldn't. "Here, Wu, we need to be realistic. I've run the numbers a dozen times. Even if we gather every remaining ship, every defense platform, every fighter pilot still alive, we have maybe a 15% chance of stopping their next push. And if we surrender, the Vex don't take prisoners. You know that." Kang Wu did know that. The Vex Queen Mind saw other species as resources to be consumed or obstacles to be eliminated. There had been no negotiations, no attempts at communication, just endless waves of bioships that adapted and evolved with each battle. "How long do we have?" he asked. Lihana glanced at her calculations. Their main fleet is 6 hours out from the Terran system. Maybe 8 if they stop to absorb the defense stations at Beta Centauri. 6 hours. Kang Wu looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through 3 years of desperate fighting. They had watched friends die, seen entire worlds consumed, and still they kept going. They deserved better than this. "Open a channel to all coalition forces," he said finally. Lieutenant Kim Tae's fingers moved over his console. "Channel open, sir." Kang Wu straightened his uniform and faced the communication pickup. Across the galaxy, what remained of the coalition military would hear his words. Astari commanders in their crystal towers, Nebulan war forms floating in their gas clouds, Korathi generals in their armored bunkers, and human captains on ships scattered throughout space. "This is Admiral Kang Wu of the Coalition Defense Force," he began. "I won't lie to you. The situation is desperate. We've lost more battles than we've won, and the enemy keeps getting stronger. But we're not dead yet." He paused, thinking of the right words. Every species in this coalition has something worth fighting for. The Astari have their crystal cities that sing in the solar wind. The Nebulans have their poetry written in gas and starlight. The Korathi have their honor and their codes of war. And we humans, we have our stubborn refusal to give up when things look impossible. On the bridge, officers nodded. Even Lee Hanna managed a small smile. "So here's what we're going to do," Kang Wu continued. "We're going to gather every ship we can find. We're going to load every weapon we have. And we're going to make the Vex pay for every system they take. If this is our last fight, let's make it one they'll remember." He gestured for Kim Tae to close the channel. Around the bridge, the mood had shifted slightly. It wasn't hope, exactly, but it wasn't despair either. It was determination. "Hana, start working on evacuation plans for the civilian populations," Kang Wu ordered. "I know we can't save everyone, but we can try to save some. Tae, send word to all remaining fleet commanders. Rally point at the asteroid belt around Sol 4. If we're making a last stand, we might as well do it defending Earth." The officers moved to their tasks with renewed energy. Kang Wu returned to the tactical display, studying the red dots that marked enemy positions. 6 hours. Maybe they could stretch it to 8 if they were lucky. Then something changed on the display. A new contact appeared at the edge of the sensor range, moving fast through hyperspace. Lee Hanna noticed it first. "Sir, we're getting a massive energy signature. Something's coming out of hyperspace in Sector 7. Kang Wu frowned. "Vex reinforcements?" "I don't think so. The energy pattern is different. It's huge, whatever it is." The bridge crew gathered around the tactical display as the contact grew larger. The computer struggled to analyze the incoming signal. Size estimates kept changing as more data came in. "Sir," Kim Tae called out, his voice filled with confusion, "I'm getting a transmission from the contact. It's coalition frequency, human codes." "That's impossible," Lee Hanna said. "All human ships are accounted for." The energy signature resolved into a solid contact. The computer finally managed to get a clear reading, and every officer on the bridge stared in disbelief. "Sir," Kim Tae whispered, "it's a dreadnought, one of ours. Registry says it's the Eternal Defiance." Kang Wu felt his heart skip. The Eternal Defiance had been lost 3 years ago on a deep space mission. The entire crew was presumed dead. "Open." "A channel," he ordered. The main screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Captain Park Jin looked older and harder than Kang Wu remembered, but his eyes still held that fierce determination that had made him one of humanity's best commanders. "Hello, Admiral," Park Jin said with a grim smile. "Sorry we're late to the party. We heard you could use some help." Captain Park Jin's face filled the main screen of the Starfalls bridge. He looked different from the last time Admiral Kang Wu had seen him. His black hair was streaked with gray now, and deep lines marked his face. But his eyes still burned, with the same intensity that had made him one of humanity's finest ship commanders. Park Jin, Kang Wu said, his voice barely above a whisper. We thought you were dead. Your entire mission group. We haven't heard from you in 3 years. Park Jin's smile was cold and sharp. We've been busy, Admiral, fighting our own war out in the dark spaces. The Vex aren't just attacking the Coalition core worlds, they've been spreading everywhere, testing their limits, learning how we fight. On the tactical display, the Eternal Defiance continued to grow larger as it approached. The ship was massive, easily twice the size of any dreadnought in the Coalition fleet. But something was wrong with its shape. The clean lines of human engineering were broken by strange growths and modifications. Parts of the hull seemed to pulse with organic movement. Commander Lee Hanna stepped closer to the screen. Captain Park, what happened to your ship? The hull design? It's been modified. You could say that? Park Jin replied. Dr. Yoon Soo can explain better than I can. She's been working on our little improvements for the past 2 years. The screen split, and another face appeared beside Park Jin. Dr. Yoon Soo had been the Coalition's leading expert on alien biology before the war. Now she looked like she hadn't slept in months. Her lab coat was stained with substances that Kang Wu didn't want to identify. Admiral Kang, she said with a tired nod. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. But we've learned things out here. Important things about the Vex. What kind of things? Lee Hanna asked. Dr. Yoon Soo's expression grew serious. The Vex aren't just using biotechnology. They are biotechnology. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment is a living organism. They adapt because they evolve in real time during combat. Kang Wu felt a chill run down his spine. We suspected that, but we couldn't prove it. We did more than prove it, Park Jin said. We captured some of them, studied them, learned how they think and how they adapt, and then we started adapting ourselves. The Eternal Defiance was close enough now that the bridge crew could see it, clearly on the visual display. The modifications to the hull weren't just strange, they were disturbing. Sections of the ship seemed to breathe. Other parts were covered in what looked like scales or chitin armor. Lieutenant Kim Tae spoke up from his station. Sir, I'm reading massive power signatures from the Defiance. Their weapons systems, I don't recognize half of these energy patterns. That's because they're not standard Coalition weapons, Dr. Yoon Soo explained. We've been fighting Vex scout fleets for 3 years. Every time we captured one of their bioships, we learned something new. We started incorporating their technology into our own systems. You mean you've been using Vex equipment? Lee Hanna asked, her voice showing her concern. Not using it, Park Jin corrected. Turning it against them. The Vex think they're the masters of adaptation, but they've never faced an enemy that could adapt faster than they could. Admiral Kang Wu studied the approaching ship. Part of him was relieved to see reinforcements, even just one ship. But another part worried about what his people had become out there in the darkness. Park, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here, he said. The Vex main fleet will be here in 5 hours. Can you help us fight them? We can do better than that, Dr. Yoon Soo said. We can show you how to beat them. But first, you need to understand what you're really fighting. So, screen changed to show a cross-section diagram of a Vex bioship. The image was incredibly detailed, showing internal organs, nerve systems, and weapon clusters that looked more like body parts than mechanical devices. Every Vex ship is controlled by a fragment of the Queen Mind, Dr. Yoon Soo continued. They share information instantly across their entire fleet. When one ship learns to defend against a weapon, they all learn. That's why your tactics stop working so quickly. So how do we fight something like that? Kang Wu asked. Park Jin's smile returned. We don't fight it. We poison it. The diagram changed to show microscopic organisms moving through the bioships, systems. They looked like tiny machines, but they moved like living creatures. We developed these 3 years ago, Dr. Yoon Soo explained. We call them adaptive nanites. They're part machine, part biological virus. They infiltrate Vex bioships and rewrite their genetic code from the inside. Lee Hanna leaned forward. You're talking about biological warfare on a massive scale. The Vex started this war, Park Jin said, his voice hard. They've consumed entire worlds, killed billions of people. If we have to use their own methods against them, so be it. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Using biological weapons against a living enemy was crossing a line that the Coalition had never considered before. There's more, Dr. Yoon-Soo said. The nanites don't just attack individual ships. They spread through the Vex communication network. Every ship they infect becomes a carrier that can infect others. We can turn their greatest strength, their shared consciousness, into their weakness. Admiral Kang Woo looked at the tactical display. The red dots representing Vex forces seemed less threatening now, but he couldn't shake his concerns about the methods his people had developed. What about side effects? He asked. These nanites of yours, do they affect other life forms? We've tested them extensively, Dr. Yoon-Soo replied. They're specifically designed to target Vex biosignatures. They won't harm Coalition species. You hope, Lee Hanna said quietly. Dr. Yoon-Soo's expression darkened. Commander, I've watched the Vex consume 3 worlds during our mission. I've seen what they do to captured populations. They don't just kill, they absorb everything, turning living beings into raw material for more bioships. If there's a chance these nanites could stop that, I'm willing to take the risk. Park Jin nodded agreement. We've been testing our weapons on captured Vex ships for 2 years. The nanites work. They cause the bioships to essentially eat themselves from the inside. The only question is whether we can deploy them on a large enough scale to affect the main fleet. How large a scale are we talking about? Kang Woo asked. We need to get close enough to the Queen Mind itself, Park Jin explained. The central intelligence that controls all Vex forces. If we can infect it directly, the effect will spread to every bioship in their fleet. That's suicide, Lee Hanna said. The Queen Mind is protected by thousands of bioships, maybe millions. Not necessarily, Dr. Yoon-Soo said. We've been monitoring their communications for months. The Queen Mind is coming here personally to oversee the final assault on the Coalition core worlds. It will be here, in this system, within hours. The implications hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. The most powerful intelligence in the Vex Empire would be within striking distance. You're talking about a direct assault on their command structure, Kang Woo said slowly. Exactly, Park Jin replied. 1 ship, 1 mission. Get close enough to deploy the nanites directly into the Queen Mind's biomass. Even if we don't survive, the infection will spread throughout their fleet. Lieutenant Kim Tae spoke up from his station. Sir, we're getting more signals from hyperspace. Multiple contacts incoming. The tactical display updated to show new red dots appearing at the edge of the system. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The Vex main fleet was arriving ahead of schedule. Looks like we're out of time for planning, Park Jin said grimly. Admiral, I need you to trust me. Our ship is equipped with weapons and defenses that can get us close to the Queen Mind. But we'll need the rest of your fleet to keep the escort ships busy. Admiral Kang Woo looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for orders. Outside, the largest enemy fleet in galactic history was preparing to destroy everything they had sworn to protect. All right, Captain, he said finally. We'll do this your way. But I want to know exactly what kind of weapons you're carrying on that ship of yours. Park Jin's smile was savage. The kind that bite back, Admiral. The kind that bite back. The Vex fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. Hundreds of bioships appeared in flashes of green light, their organic hulls glistening in the starlight. They moved with purpose, forming attack formations that looked more like hunting patterns than military maneuvers. Lieutenant Kim Tae's voice was tight with fear as he read the sensor data. Admiral, I'm counting over 800 Vex bioships. They're spreading out to surround the system. Admiral Kang Wu watched the tactical display as red dots filled the screen. Each dot represented a living warship capable of adapting to any weapon the Coalition had ever used. But now, they had something different. Now, they had Captain Park Jin and his modified dreadnought. "Signal all Coalition ships," Kang Wu ordered. "Form defensive positions around the Eternal Defiance. We're going to escort her to the center of..." their formation. Commander Lee Hana looked up from her station. "Admiral, the other ship captains are asking questions about our new ally. They want to know what kind of weapons the Defiance is carrying." "Tell them they'll find out soon enough," Kang Wu replied. He opened a private channel to Park Jin. "Captain, we're ready to begin your attack run. What do you need from us?" Park Jin's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Kang Wu could see the bridge of the Eternal Defiance. It looked wrong somehow. The walls seemed to pulse with organic movement, and strange lights flickered in patterns that hurt to watch. "We need you to keep their escort ships busy," Park Jin said. "The Queen Mind will be in the center of their formation, protected by her most powerful bioships. We have to get through them to deploy our nanites." "What exactly are these weapons of yours?" Lee Hana asked. Dr. Yoon Soo appeared, beside Park Jin on the screen. Her hands were covered in what looked like living gloves that moved independently of her fingers. "Every weapon on this ship is designed to counter Vex adaptation," she explained. "We don't use energy beams or kinetic rounds. We use swarms of nanites that are programmed to evolve faster than the Vex can defend against them." Lieutenant Kim. Tay interrupted from his station. "Sir, the Vex ships are beginning their attack approach. They're moving faster than expected." On the main display, the bioships were accelerating toward the Coalition fleet. Their hulls rippled and changed as they moved, preparing for battle. Some grew additional armor plating, while others sprouted weapon pods that looked like organic growths. "Here they come," Park Jin said grimly. "All Coalition ships prepare for engagement. And remember, don't use the same weapon twice in a row. Make them work to adapt." The first wave of Vex fighters reached the Coalition line. They were small, fast bioships that moved like living creatures rather than machines. The Coalition ships opened fire with plasma cannons and missile barrages. The results were immediately disappointing. The Vex fighters absorbed the plasma fire, and their hulls simply grew thicker to deflect the missiles. Within minutes, they had adapted to counter every weapon the Coalition was using. "This isn't working," Lee Hana said. "They're adapting too fast." "Wait for it," Park Jin replied. The Eternal Defiance moved forward, passing through the Coalition formation. As it approached the Vex fighters, strange ports opened along its hull. Instead of energy beams or missiles, clouds of what looked like metallic dust poured out of the ship. The dust clouds enveloped the Vex fighters, and the effect was immediate and horrible. The bioships began to dissolve. Their hulls turned soft and started falling apart like melting plastic. Within seconds, the entire first wave of attackers had been reduced to floating organic debris. "What did you just do?" Kang Wu asked, staring. "At the destruction." "Nanite swarm," Dr. Yoon Soo explained. "Each nanite is programmed to break down Vex biomatter at the molecular level. The beauty is that they reproduce using the materials they consume. The more Vex ships they destroy, the more nanites we have." The second wave of Vex attackers approached more cautiously. Their hulls had already begun to change, developing new armor that looked like metallic scales. But when the nanite clouds reached them, the results were the same. The bioships dissolved, adding their mass to the growing swarm of destructive nanites. "Impossible," Lee Hana whispered. "They can't adapt that quickly." "That's because we're not giving them time to adapt," Park Jin said. "The nanites evolve in real time, changing their attack methods faster than the Vex can develop defenses. We're beating them at their own game." The larger Vex bioships hung back, their hulls shifting and changing as they tried to find a defense against the nanite clouds. Some grew thicker armor, others developed energy shields, and a few even sprouted what looked like organic flamethrowers. "They're trying everything," Dr. Yoon-soo observed. "But it won't work. The nanites are designed to adapt to any defense they encounter." Lieutenant Kim Tae called out from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy signature from the center of the Vex formation. Something big is coming." The space around the Vex fleet began to warp and twist. A hole in reality opened up, and something enormous emerged from hyperspace. It was bigger than any ship anyone had ever seen, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in organic growths that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "The Queen Mind," Park Jin said quietly. "She's here." The massive bioorganism hung in space like a living planet. Smaller bioships swarmed around it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. As it settled into position, every other Vex ship in the system began to move with renewed coordination and purpose. "The entire fleet is now under direct control," Dr. Yoon-soo said. "Every bioship is connected to the Queen Mind's consciousness. They'll be much more dangerous now." As if to prove her point, the Vex ships suddenly changed tactics. Instead of attacking individually, they began to move in perfect formation. Their biohulls synchronized their adaptations, creating a fleet-wide defense against the nanite clouds. "They're learning," Lee Hana said. "The Queen Mind is analyzing our weapons and sharing countermeasures with every ship." "Then we need to move fast," Park Jin replied. "Captain, we need your ships to create a distraction. Draw off as many escort ships as possible. We're going in." The Eternal Defiance accelerated toward the center of the Vex formation. Its hull continued to change and adapt as it moved, growing new armor plates and weapon systems that seemed to appear from nowhere. Admiral Kang Woo ordered the Coalition fleet to follow the human dreadnought. Astari crystal ships fired beams of pure light, while Karathi warships launched swarms of kinetic projectiles. The Nebulan gas ships released clouds of corrosive vapor that ate through bio-armor. The Vex responded with overwhelming force. Bioships surrounded the Coalition fleet from all sides, their weapons adapting in real time to counter every attack. But something was different now. Instead of simply absorbing damage and adapting, some of the Vex ships were actually being destroyed. "Our weapons are working better," Lee Hana noticed. "They're not adapting as quickly as before. The nanites are interfering with their adaptation process," Dr. Yoon-soo explained over the comm. "Even when they're not directly attacking, they're spreading through the area and disrupting Vex biosystems." The Eternal Defiance pushed deeper into the enemy formation, leaving a trail of dissolved bioships in its wake. But the closer it got to the Queen Mind, the fiercer the resistance became. Massive bioships the size of battleships moved to intercept it, their hulls bristling with organic weapons. "Park, you're taking heavy fire," Kang Woo warned. "Your ship won't survive much more of this." "We don't need to survive," Park Jin replied. "We just need to get close enough." The human dreadnought's hull was beginning to show damage. Sections of armor were being burned away by Vex bioweapons, and some of the organic modifications were dying and falling off the ship. "Distance to target?" Park Jin asked. 200 kilometers, someone on his bridge replied. "Not close enough. We need to be in direct contact." "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Tae called out, "the Defiance is accelerating directly toward the Queen Mind." "They're on a collision course." Admiral Kang Woo realized what Park Jin was planning. "Captain, you can't ram that thing. It's too big. Your ship will be destroyed." "That's the idea, Admiral," Park Jin said calmly. "The nanites need to be deployed directly into the Queen Mind's biomass. The only way to do that is to get inside." "You're talking about suicide. We're talking about victory. Admiral, it's been an honor serving with you." The Eternal Defiance smashed through the final line of escort ships, its hull glowing from weapons fire and internal explosions. But it kept moving, accelerating toward the massive bioorganism that controlled the entire Vex fleet. The Queen Mind seemed to sense the danger. Tentacles the size of space stations reached out to stop the approaching ship, but the Defiance carved through them with clouds of nanites that dissolved everything they touched. "Brace for impact," Park Jin said. The human dreadnought disappeared into the Queen Mind's biomass like a bullet entering flesh. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the screaming began. The scream that came from the Queen Mind was not heard through space, but felt through the minds of every living being in the system. It was a sound of pure agony and rage that made humans clutch their heads and alien crew members collapse at their stations. Admiral Kang Wu gripped the arms of his command chair as the psychic wave washed over the bridge of the Starfall. Around him, officers were struggling to stay conscious. The sound seemed to come from inside their skulls, a terrible shriek that spoke of pain beyond imagination. "What's happening?" Commander Lihana gasped, blood trickling from her nose. On the main display, the Queen Mind's massive bioform was writhing in space. The point where the eternal defiance had penetrated its flesh was glowing with strange lights. Cracks of bioluminescence spread out from the wound like infection through a body. Lieutenant Kim Tae managed to check his instruments, despite the pain in his head. "The defiance is inside the Queen Mind's biomass. I'm reading massive energy, discharge from the impact site." The psychic scream slowly faded, but the Queen Mind's distress was visible to everyone. Its surface was changing color, shifting from the normal dark green to patches of sickly yellow and red. Some sections were turning black and beginning to flake off into space. "The nanites are working," Lihana said with amazement. "They're actually attacking the Queen Mind from the inside." But the victory celebration was premature. The Vex escort, ships around the Queen Mind, were not retreating or showing confusion. Instead, they were becoming more aggressive, attacking the Coalition fleet with desperate fury. "Sir," Kim Tae reported, "the Vex ships are concentrating all their fire on us. They're ignoring damage to themselves and just trying to destroy as many Coalition ships as possible." Admiral Kang Wu watched as bioships threw themselves at Coalition. Vessels in suicide attacks. They were no longer trying to adapt or survive. They just wanted to cause as much destruction as they could before whatever was happening to their Queen Mind finished spreading. "All ships defensive formations," he ordered. "Don't let them overwhelm us now." Inside the Queen Mind, something extraordinary was happening. The Eternal Defiance had not been destroyed by the impact. Instead, it had buried itself deep in the bioorganism's flesh like a parasite. The ship's hull was cracked and broken, but its crew was still alive. Colonel Jang Hyun led a team of soldiers through the corridors of their damaged ship. But these were not normal corridors anymore. The walls were covered in a mixture of human metal and alien biomatter. The nanites had begun to merge the ship with the Queen Mind's body, creating something that was neither fully machine nor fully organic. "Status report," Jang Hyun called to his team. "Weapon systems are still functional," reported Sergeant Choi Mia, checking her tablet. "The nanite deployment system is working perfectly. Dr. Yoon Soo says we're spreading infection throughout the Queen Mind's nervous system." Jang Hyun nodded and activated his communication device. "Captain Park, what's our mission now?" Park Jin's voice came through the speakers, distorted by interference from the biomatter surrounding them. "We need to reach the Queen Mind's central nervous cluster. Dr. Yoon Soo believes that's where we can do the most damage." The team moved through passages that were becoming stranger with every step. The nanites were rewriting the biology around them, turning the Queen Mind's own flesh into weapons against itself. Walls that had been solid biomatter were now growing spikes and defensive systems designed to protect the human intruders. Dr. Yoon Soo met them at what had once been the ship's laboratory. Now it was a bizarre fusion of human technology and alien biology. Organic computers grew from the walls, and pools of living liquid served as data storage systems. "The infection is spreading faster than I hoped," she reported, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. The Queen Mind is trying to cut off infected sections of itself, but the nanites are evolving to counter every defense. What about the rest of the Vex fleet? Jang Hyun asked. They're still receiving commands from the Queen Mind, but those commands are becoming confused. The infection is affecting the Queen Mind's ability to think clearly. Outside in space, this confusion was becoming obvious. Vex bioships were beginning to attack each other, mistaking allies for enemies. Some were trying to flee the system, while others continued their assault on coalition forces. Admiral Kang Woo saw the opportunity and seized it. All ships advance. Hit them while they're disorganized. The coalition fleet moved forward, taking advantage of the chaos among their enemies. Astari crystal ships carved through confused bioships with beams of focused light. Karathi warships used their heavy armor to ram through enemy formations. Nebulan gas ships released clouds of corrosive chemicals that the Vex could no longer adapt to quickly enough, but the real battle was happening inside the Queen Mind itself. Colonel Jang Hyun and his team had reached what Dr. Yoon Soo called the central nervous cluster. It was a vast chamber filled with organic computers the size of buildings. Neural pathways thick as subway tunnels carried information throughout. The Queen Mind's body. This is it, Dr. Yoon Soo said. If we can introduce nanites directly into these neural pathways, we can take control of the Queen Mind's communication with its fleet. Sergeant Choi Mia was setting up the nanite deployment system when alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The Queen Mind had finally realized what was happening inside its body and was sending its own immune system to stop the intruders. Contact! Jang Hyun shouted as creatures that looked like living antibodies poured into the chamber. They were the size of humans but moved like liquid, changing shape as they attacked. The human soldiers opened fire with weapons that had been modified with Vex biotechnology. Their bullets were actually small organisms that burrowed into enemy flesh and exploded from the inside. Their armor was covered in defensive nanites that dissolved anything that tried to penetrate it, but the Queen Mind's immune system was adapting quickly. The antibody creatures began to develop resistance to human weapons, growing thicker skin and developing new attack methods. "We need more time," Dr. Yoon Soo called out as she worked frantically with the deployment system. "The nanites need 30 seconds to fully integrate with the neural pathways." "You'll get your 30 seconds," Jang Hyun replied, reloading his weapon. The battle inside the Queen Mind's body was unlike anything in military history. Human soldiers fought living immune systems while surrounded by alien biology that was being rewritten by their own nanites. The walls themselves were fighting, growing spikes to attack the antibodies while creating barriers to protect the humans. Outside, the effect on the Vex fleet was becoming more dramatic. Bioships were beginning to shut down completely as the infection spread through the Queen Mind's command network. Some were simply floating dead in space, while others were turning on their own allies with no apparent reason. "It's working," Commander Lee Hana reported from the Starfall's bridge. "The Vex fleet is falling apart." But Admiral Kang Woo was watching something else on the tactical display. More ships were coming out of hyperspace, but these were not Vex bioships. They were coalition vessels, human ships that had been lost, or presumed destroyed during the war. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Tae said in confusion, "I'm getting coalition identification codes from those new contacts, but according to our records, those ships were destroyed months ago." The mystery was solved when one of the ships opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on screen was human, but changed in disturbing ways. The captain's skin had a greenish tint, and his eyes glowed with the same bioluminescence seen on Vex ships. "Admiral Kang Woo," the changed captain said. "This is Captain Lee Dong of the Victorious. We've been infected by Vex biotechnology, but we've learned to control it. We're here to help finish what Captain Park Jin started." Admiral Kang Woo realized that the war had changed more than anyone had imagined. Humans weren't just fighting the Vex anymore. They were becoming something new, something that could use the enemy's own weapons against them. Inside the Queen Mind, Dr. Yoon Su's nanites finally completed their integration with the neural pathways. Suddenly, the entire bioorganism went still. The immune system stopped attacking, the antibody creatures fell motionless, and even the walls stopped their defensive movements. "We have control," Dr. Yoon Su announced. "The Queen Mind is ours." Colonel Jang Hyun activated his communicator. "Admiral, this is ground team. The Queen Mind has been neutralized. We're ready to begin the next phase." But Admiral Kang Woo was staring at the changed human ships on his display, wondering what exactly the next phase would bring. The infected human ships moved through space with an eerie grace that made Admiral Kang Woo's skin crawl. Their hulls pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns as Vex bioships, but there was something different about them. Where Vex ships moved with insect-like precision, these vessels moved with human creativity and unpredictability. Captain Lee Dong's face remained on the main screen of the Starfall. His transformation was disturbing but fascinating. The greenish tint to his skin seemed to shift and change as he spoke, and his glowing eyes tracked movement with predatory intensity. "Admiral," Lee Dong said, "we know this is hard to accept. We look like the enemy now, but we're still human where it matters, in here." He tapped his chest over his heart. Commander Lee Hana stepped closer to the screen. "Captain Lee Dong, according to our records, your ship was destroyed 8 months ago at the Battle of Rigel Prime. How are you here?" Lee Dong's smile was unsettling. "We weren't destroyed. We were captured. The Vex tried to convert us, to make us into drones for their fleet, but they underestimated human stubbornness. Instead of being absorbed, we learned to absorb them." On the tactical display, Lieutenant Kim Tae was tracking the movements of the infected human ships. "Sir, they're not following standard coalition formations. They're moving in patterns I've never seen before." "That's because we don't think like we used to," Lee Dong explained. "The bio-integration has changed us. We can process information faster, adapt to threats in real time, and coordinate our actions without radio communication. We think as a group while still maintaining our individual personalities." Admiral Kang Woo felt a chill of fear. "You're saying you have a hive mind like the Vex?" "Not like the Vex," Lee Dong corrected. "Better than the Vex. Their Queen Mind controlled everything from the top down. We share information and coordinate actions, but each captain still makes their own decisions. We have the benefits of group thinking without losing our independence." Dr. Yoon Su's voice came through the communication system from inside the captured Queen Mind. "Admiral, I'm monitoring the conversation. What Captain Lee Dong is describing is theoretically possible. The bio-integration could enhance human cognitive abilities without removing free will." "Theoretically," Lee Hana repeated with concern. "We're living proof that it works," Lee Dong said. "Admiral, we have 17 ships in our fleet, all of them crewed by humans who chose integration over death. We've been fighting Vex forces in the Outer Rim for months, learning their tactics, stealing their technology, and turning it against them. The space around them was still filled with chaos. Vex bioships drifted aimlessly without direction from their Queen Mind. Some were attacking each other in confusion, while others were simply shutting down completely. The infection that Dr. Yoon Su had introduced was spreading through their communication network like a virus. "Sir," Kim Tae reported, "I'm detecting massive changes in the Vex bioships. Many of them are going dormant, but some are showing new activity patterns." On the main display, Admiral Kang Woo could see what Kim Tae meant. Some of the Vex ships were beginning to move with purpose again, but they weren't attacking coalition forces. Instead, they were moving toward the infected human ships. "They're responding to us," Lee Dong explained. "The nanites that Dr. Yoon Su developed are similar to the bio-integration process we've undergone. Some of the Vex ships are recognizing us as a new form of authority." "You mean they're following your orders?" Lee Hana asked in disbelief. "In a way, yes. We can't control them directly like the Queen Mind could, but we can influence their behavior. Watch." One of the infected human ships moved closer to a group of confused Vex bioships. As it approached, the alien vessels began to calm down and fall into formation behind it. Within minutes, a dozen Vex ships were following the human vessel. Like lost children following a parent, Admiral Kang Wu realized the implications immediately. "You're saying we could turn the entire Vex fleet to our side?" "Not exactly," Dr. Yoon Su's voice came through the speakers. "The bioships need constant guidance. Without the Queen Mind, they're like computers without an operating system. They can function, but they need someone to tell them what to do." Colonel Jang Hyun's voice joined the conversation from inside the Queen Mind. "Doctor, what's the status of our primary mission? Can we use the Queen Mind to shut down all Vex forces?" "I'm working on it," Dr. Yoon Su replied. "The Queen Mind's neural pathways are incredibly complex. I can send shutdown commands to the fleet, but it will take time to reach every ship. And there's another problem." "What kind of problem?" Admiral Kang Wu asked. "The Queen Mind isn't just a computer. It's a living being with its own survival instincts. It's fighting against the nanite infection, trying to regain control of its own body. I can maintain control for now, but I don't know how long it will last." As if to prove her point, the massive bioorganism began to shudder. Its surface rippled with waves of movement as internal battles raged between nanites and the Queen Mind's immune system. Some sections of its hull began to glow brighter, while others went completely dark. The infection is spreading throughout. "The Vex communication network," Dr. Yoon Su continued, "but it's also causing the Queen Mind to become unstable. If it dies, we lose our ability to control the Vex fleet." Captain Lee Dong's image flickered on the screen as his ship moved closer. "To the Queen Mind." "Dr. Yoon Su, what if we don't try to control the Queen Mind? What if we replace it?" "Replace it with what?" Admiral Kang Wu asked. "With us," Lee Dong replied. "The integrated humans can interface directly with Vex biotechnology. If we can connect to the Queen Mind's neural network, we could take over its functions permanently." Dr. Yoon Su's voice was thoughtful. "It's possible, but the risks are enormous. The person who interfaces with the Queen Mind would essentially become the new central intelligence for the entire Vex fleet. They would have to process information from millions of bioships simultaneously. One person couldn't handle that kind of mental load," Lee Hana said. "You're right," Lee Dong agreed. "But 17 integrated humans working together might be able to manage it. We could share the load, each captain taking responsibility for a portion of the fleet." Admiral Kang Wu looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for his decision. Outside, the battle was still raging as coalition forces fought the remaining organized Vex ships, but he could see that conventional warfare wasn't going to be enough anymore. "Captain Lee Dong," he said finally. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A permanent solution," Lee Dong replied. "We integrate with the Queen Mind's neural network and take control of the entire Vex fleet. We turn their greatest weapon, their unity and adaptability, into a force for peace instead of conquest." "And the cost?" Lee Dong was quiet for a moment. "We would no longer be fully human. The integration process is irreversible. We would become something new, part human, part Vex, part machine. But we would retain our humanity where it matters most." Commander Lee Hana stepped forward. "Admiral, we can't ask these people to sacrifice their humanity for victory." "We're not asking," Lee Dong said gently. "We're volunteering. We made this choice months ago when we chose integration over death. This is just the next step." Dr. Yoon Su's voice came through the speakers again, but this time it sounded strained. "Admiral, whatever we're going to do, we need to decide quickly. The Queen Mind is fighting harder against the nanite infection. I'm losing control of several neural clusters. On the tactical display, some of the dormant Vex ships were beginning to wake up and resume their attacks on coalition forces. The window of opportunity was closing rapidly. "Colonel Jang Hyun," Admiral Kang Woo called, "what's your assessment of the situation inside the Queen Mind?" "Sir, the bioorganism is definitely dying," Jang Hyun reported. "Dr. Yoon Soo is right. We have maybe an hour before it shuts down completely. If we're going to do something drastic, now is the time." Admiral Kang Woo looked at the faces of his bridge crew, then at Captain Lee Dong's transformed features on the screen. The decision he made in the next few minutes would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the future of humanity itself. "Captain Lee Dong," he said slowly, "if you and your crews are willing to make this sacrifice, then we'll support you. Begin the integration process." "Thank you, Admiral," Lee Dong replied. "History will remember this moment as the day humanity chose evolution over extinction." The infected human ships began to move toward the Queen Mind, preparing for a transformation that would change the galaxy forever. The 17 infected human ships approached the Queen Mind like pilgrims approaching a sacred temple. Each vessel pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that matched the rhythm of their crew's heartbeats. Captain Lee Dong led the formation, his ship victorious, glowing brighter than the others as it prepared for the most dangerous procedure ever attempted. Admiral Kang Woo watched from the bridge of the Starfall as the integration process began. The infected ships extended organic tendrils from their hulls, reaching out to make physical contact with the Queen Mind's massive bioform. Where the tendrils touched, new neural pathways began to grow, creating bridges between human and alien consciousness. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Tae reported, his voice filled with worry, "I'm reading massive bioelectrical activity from the Queen Mind. The integration is causing some kind of feedback loop." Inside the Queen Mind, Dr. Yoon Soo was struggling to maintain control of the neural networks while the new connections formed around her. The organic computers that filled the chamber were sparking with energy overloads as human and Vex consciousness began to merge. "The system is rejecting the integration," she called out to Colonel Jang Hyun. "The Queen Mind's immune system recognizes the human biosignatures as foreign invaders." Jang Hyun moved through the chamber, his modified armor protecting him from the electrical discharges that were filling the air. "Can you override the immune response?" "I'm trying, but it's like trying to perform surgery during an earthquake. Every time I establish a new connection, the Queen Mind's defenses try to sever it." Outside, the infected human ships were experiencing the same resistance. Captain Lee Dong's crew was connected to their ship's biosystems, feeling every shock and surge as the integration encountered obstacles. Some crew members collapsed as the neural strain became too much for their enhanced but still partially human brains. "Status report," Lee Dong called out, blood trickling from his nose as the psychic pressure increased. "Hull integrity holding," reported his engineer, Major Song Ki, whose skin had taken on an even more pronounced greenish tint during the procedure. "But the bio-neural interfaces are overloading. We're pushing the limits of what human consciousness can handle." Through the shared connection that linked all the integrated humans, Lee Dong could feel the strain his fellow captains were experiencing. Captain Park Yuna of the Defiant Dawn was struggling with severe neural feedback. Captain Kim Jae of the Eternal Vigilance was barely conscious as his mind tried to process information from thousands of Vex bioships simultaneously. "We need to slow down the integration," Lee Dong announced to his fleet. "We're trying to do too much too fast." But Dr. Yoon Soo's voice came through the communication system with urgent warning. "We don't have time to slow down. The Queen Mind is dying faster than expected. If we don't complete the integration in the next 20 minutes, we'll lose our chance entirely." Admiral Kang Woo could see the crisis developing on his tactical display. The Vex fleet was becoming more chaotic as the Queen Mind's control weakened. Some bioships were attacking randomly, while others were simply drifting in space like dead hulks. But more concerning were the ships that seemed to be awakening with new purpose, as if some other intelligence was trying to take control. "Commander, Lee Hanna, he called. Are you detecting any new command signals in the Vex communication network? Lee Hanna studied her instruments carefully. Yes, sir. There are multiple new sources of command signals emerging throughout the fleet. It looks like individual Vex ships are trying to establish their own mini-networks. That means the fleet could fragment into dozens of smaller groups, Kim Tae observed. Instead of one coordinated enemy, we could face hundreds of independent Vex commanders. The situation was becoming more desperate by the minute. Captain Lee Dong and his crews were pushing their enhanced human minds to the breaking point, trying to establish control over a neural network that was actively resisting them. Inside the Queen Mind, Dr. Yoon Soo was fighting a losing battle against the bioorganism's immune system. I have an idea, announced Major Song Ki from his station aboard the Victorious. What if instead of trying to control the Queen Mind, we become part of it? Explain, Lee Dong said through gritted teeth as another wave of neural feedback hit him. The Queen Mind is resisting us because it sees us as invaders trying to take control. But what if we don't try to control it? What if we merge with it completely, becoming a new form of consciousness that's neither human nor Vex? Dr. Yoon Soo heard the proposal through the communication link. That's incredibly dangerous. Complete neural integration could destroy your individual personalities entirely. You might lose everything that makes you human. We're already losing our humanity piece by piece, Captain Park Yuna said weakly from her ship. At least this way, we might save something of who we are while gaining the power to end this war. Colonel Jang Hyun, still fighting through the chaos inside the Queen Mind's neural chamber, added his voice to the discussion. Dr. Yoon Soo, is complete integration even possible? Theoretically, yes, she replied. But the process would be irreversible. Once the human and Vex neural patterns merge completely, there would be no way to separate them again. The integrated consciousness would be something entirely new. Admiral Kang Woo listened to the conversation with growing concern. These brave people were talking about sacrificing not just their lives, but their very identity as human beings. Yet he could see no other option. The conventional coalition fleet was taking heavy casualties from the chaotic Vex ships, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Captain Lee Dong, he said formally, I want you to understand what you're proposing. You're talking about the complete transformation of 17 human crews. That's over 3,000 people who would cease to exist as we know them. Yes, sir, Lee Dong replied, his voice steady despite the pain he was experiencing. But those 3,000 people could save billions of others. The math is simple. Commander Lee Hanna stepped forward. Admiral, there has to be another way. We can't ask these people to give up their souls for victory. You're not asking, said Captain Kim Jae, his words slurred by the neural strain. We're volunteering. We've been changing already, becoming something new with each battle. This is just the final step. The Queen Mind shuddered violently, and several of the infected human ships lost their connections temporarily. Sparks flew from damaged bio-neural interfaces, and the organic computers inside the Queen Mind began to smoke and fail. We're running out of time, Dr. Yoon Soo announced. The Queen Mind's neural core is starting to shut down. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. Captain Lee Dong looked around his bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through months of impossible battles, had chosen integration over death, and had remained loyal even as they became something less than human, but more than they had been before. All ships, he announced, prepare for complete neural integration. This is our choice, freely made. We go into the darkness so that others can live in the light. One by one, the other captains acknowledged the order. Captain Park Yuna, despite her weakness, gave a firm, confirmed. Captain Kim Jae managed a whispered, ready. The others followed, each accepting the sacrifice they were about to make. The 17 ships began to glow more brightly as their bio-neural systems prepared for the final integration. Inside the Queen Mind, Dr. Yoon Soo worked frantically to prepare the neural pathways for the massive influx of human consciousness that was about to merge with the alien intelligence. "Integration beginning in 30 seconds, she announced. Admiral Kang Woo stood at attention on his bridge, saluting the brave souls who were about to give up everything for victory. Around him, his officers did the same, honoring the sacrifice that was about to transform the war and possibly the entire galaxy. "It's been an honor serving with you all," Captain Lee Dong said as the final countdown began. Then the integration began, and 17 human crews became something entirely new. The moment the complete integration began, reality seemed to bend around the Queen Mind. The massive bioorganism pulsed with new patterns of light that had never existed before, colors that were somehow both alien and human at the same time. Admiral Kang Woo watched from the Starfall's bridge as 17 human ships became part of something larger than themselves. The change was immediate and terrifying. The infected human vessels didn't just connect to the Queen Mind, they merged with it completely. Their hulls dissolved and reformed, becoming extensions of the vast bioorganism. What had once been separate ships were now organs in a living creature the size of a small moon. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Tae reported, his voice shaking, "I'm not reading the individual ships anymore. They've become part of the Queen Mind's biomass." Commander Lee Hana stared at the display in shock. "The crews? What happened to the crews?" As if in answer to her question, the communication system activated. But the voice that spoke was not quite human anymore. It carried echoes of Captain Lee Dong's speech patterns, but there was something vast and alien underlying it. "Admiral Kang Woo," the new voice said, the integration is complete. We have become something new." The voice seemed to come from multiple sources at once, as if thousands of people were speaking in perfect harmony. Admiral Kang Woo could hear traces of all 17 captains in the combined voice, but they were no longer individuals. "Are you still human?" he asked quietly. "We remember being human," the voice replied. "We carry those memories, those values, those dreams. But we are more now. We are the bridge between species, the connection that will end this war forever." Throughout the Vex fleet, the effect of the integration was spreading like wildfire. Bioships that had been chaotic and directionless suddenly stopped their random attacks. One by one, they began to respond to new commands from the transformed Queen Mind. Dr. Yoon Soo's voice came through the communication system, but she sounded different too. The integration had affected everyone inside the Queen Mind's biomass. "Admiral, I can feel the entire Vex network responding to the new consciousness. Every bioship in the galaxy is connected to this central intelligence." "How many ships are we talking about?" Admiral Kang Woo asked. "Millions," the merged consciousness replied. "Vex forces spread across hundreds of star systems. All of them are now under our control." Colonel Jang Hyun's voice joined the conversation, though he too sounded changed by his proximity to the integration. "Sir, we have a problem. Some of the Vex bioships are refusing to accept the new commands. They're trying to break free from the network entirely." On the tactical display, Admiral Kang Woo could see what Jang Hyun meant. While most of the Vex fleet had stopped attacking and was floating peacefully in space, several groups of bioships were still fighting. These ships were glowing with angry red light instead of the calm blue-green that marked ships under the new consciousness's control. "Those are the ships with the strongest individual wills," the merged consciousness explained. "Some Vex bioships developed independent thought during the war. They don't want to be controlled by anyone, not even us." "How dangerous are they?" Commander Lee Hana asked. "Very dangerous. They have all the adaptive abilities of normal Vex ships, but they're driven by rage and the desire for freedom. They see us as just another form of slavery. As if to prove the point, one of the rebel bioships broke formation and attacked a group of coalition vessels. Its weapons had evolved, beyond anything seen before, firing streams of living acid that ate through ship hulls in seconds. All coalition forces, defensive positions, Admiral Kang Wu ordered. Protect yourselves from the rebel ships. The loyal Vex bioships, now under control of the new consciousness, moved to intercept the rebels. What followed was unlike any battle ever witnessed. Bioships that had once been identical fought each other with weapons that evolved in real time. The rebels developed new attack forms, while the loyal ships created new defenses, all guided by the merged human-Vex intelligence. "We cannot fight them with force alone," the new consciousness said. "The rebel ships are too adaptable. We need a different approach." "What do you suggest?" Admiral Kang Wu asked. "We offer them something they've never had before. True freedom. Not freedom from control, but freedom to choose their own purpose." Dr. Yoon Su's voice carried confusion. "How do we give freedom to living weapons?" "By showing them what we've learned," the consciousness replied. "That cooperation is stronger than conquest, that diversity creates more possibilities than uniformity." The Queen Mind began to change again. Its surface sprouted new growths that looked like flowers made of living light. These strange blooms released clouds of luminous spores that drifted toward the rebel bioships. "What are those?" Lieutenant Kim Tae asked. "Information spores," the consciousness explained. "They carry memories of what it means to choose cooperation over conflict. The rebels will experience our memories of friendship, love, sacrifice for others." The spores reached the first group of rebel ships. Instead of being destroyed or absorbed, the bioships began to slow down. Their angry red glow shifted to confused yellow, then to curious purple. Some of them stopped attacking entirely and just floated in space, apparently deep in thought. But not all the rebels were convinced. The largest group, led by what appeared to be a Vex ship the size of a battleship, rejected the spores completely. Its weapons evolved to destroy the information carriers before they could make contact. "The leadership has too much individual will," the consciousness observed. "It has developed what humans would call pride. It would rather die free than live, under any form of guidance." Admiral Kang Wu watched as the rebel leader gathered the remaining resistant ships around itself. There were maybe 50 bioships in the group, but they were among the largest and most advanced in the fleet. "Can you force them to surrender?" he asked. "We could destroy them," the consciousness replied sadly. "But that would violate everything we've learned from our human memories. The right to choose, even to choose wrongly, is sacred." The rebel leadership was growing larger, absorbing biomass from nearby debris to increase its size and power. It was preparing for a final battle, determined to fight to the death rather than accept any form of control. "There might be another way," Dr. Yoon Su suggested. "What if we don't try to control them or convince them? What if we just let them go?" "Explain," Admiral Kang Wu said. "Give them their own territory," she continued, "a section of space where they can live according to their own rules. No interference, no guidance, just complete independence." The consciousness was quiet for a long moment, processing this idea through the combined wisdom of human and Vex experience. It's risky. They might use their freedom to attack others. But they might also learn to build instead of destroy, Commander Lee Hana added. "Sometimes the best way to teach someone is to give them the chance to make their own mistakes." The rebel leadership had finished its preparations and was beginning to advance toward the Queen Mind. Its weapons were charged and ready, its hull bristling with new defensive adaptations. Behind it, the other rebel ships formed a final attack. "Formation. Admiral," the consciousness said, "we're going to try something that has never been attempted before. We're going to give them what they want most: complete freedom from all outside influence." "How?" "By severing their connection to the Vex network entirely. They'll become truly independent life forms, free to make their own choices and face their own consequences. The Queen Mind began to glow with new patterns of light. Instead of trying to reconnect with the rebel ships, it was doing the opposite, cutting all ties, removing all possible forms of control or influence. The effect on the rebels was immediate and dramatic. Their biohulls flickered as the network connections were severed. For the first time in their existence, they were completely alone with their own thoughts. The rebel leadership stopped its advance, hovering in space as it processed this new reality. It was free, truly free, but it was also isolated in a way it had never experienced before. "Now we wait," the consciousness said, "and see what they choose to do with their freedom." The rebel leadership floated in space for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Its massive biohull pulsed with confused patterns of light as it tried to understand what had just happened. For the first time in its existence, it was completely alone with its own thoughts, free from any network or guiding intelligence. Admiral Kang Wu watched from the bridge of the Starfall, hardly daring to breathe. The success or failure of this unprecedented experiment in freedom would determine whether the war truly ended or simply took a new and possibly more dangerous form. "What's it doing?" Commander Lee Hana whispered. "Learning," the merged consciousness replied through the communication system. "It's experiencing individual thought for the first time. Imagine being connected to millions of minds your entire life, then suddenly finding yourself alone. It's both terrifying and liberating." The other rebel ships hung back, waiting to see what their leader would decide. Some of them were already showing signs of confusion, their bioluminescent patterns flickering uncertainly. Without the network to guide them, they had to think for themselves about everything: where to go, what to do, even how to exist. Lieutenant Kim Tae monitored the energy readings from his station. "Sir, the rebel ships are powering down their weapons. They're not attacking anymore." "They're not retreating either," Lee Hana observed. "They're just waiting." The rebel leadership finally began to move, but not toward the Queen Mind or the Coalition fleet. Instead, it turned toward empty space, away from all the other vessels in the system. Its biohull was changing, growing new structures that looked like sensory organs, eyes and ears designed to experience the universe as an individual rather than as part of a collective. "It's choosing exploration over destruction," Dr. Yoon Su's voice came from within the Queen Mind, filled with wonder. "It wants to learn about the universe on its own terms." One by one, the other rebel ships began to follow their leader away from the battlefield. They moved slowly, almost hesitantly, like children taking their first steps. Their weapons remained powered down, and their hulls continued to evolve new sensory organs. "Should we let them go?" Admiral Kang Wu asked. "Yes," the consciousness replied without hesitation. "They've chosen their path. Now we must trust them to walk it wisely." As the rebel ships departed for unknown regions of space, the rest of the Vex fleet underwent a remarkable transformation. No longer driven by the need to consume and conquer, the bioships began to change their basic structure. Weapon pods were absorbed back into the hulls and replaced with scientific instruments. Armor plating gave way to transparent viewing ports. Ships of war were becoming ships of exploration and discovery. "The transformation is happening across the entire galaxy," the consciousness reported. "Every Vex bioship is being converted from a weapon of war into a tool for learning and growth." Admiral Kang Wu felt a weight lifting from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized he was carrying. "Are you saying the war is over?" "The war is over," the consciousness confirmed. "But our work is just beginning." Colonel Jang Hyun emerged from the interior of the Queen Mind, his armor covered in biomatter that seemed to move with its own life. "Admiral, you need to see what we've found inside this thing. The Queen Mind wasn't just a military commander. It was a repository of knowledge from thousands of species the Vex encountered over millions of years. Dr. Yoon Soo appeared beside him, her appearance changed by her exposure to the bio-integration process. Her skin had taken on a slight greenish tint, and her eyes now held flecks of the same bioluminescence found in Vex organisms. "The information stored here is incredible," she said excitedly. "Scientific discoveries, cultural records, artistic achievements, the Vex preserved everything they absorbed. We have access to the collective knowledge of entire civilizations." "What do you plan to do with it?" Commander Lihana asked. The consciousness answered with voices that carried the harmony of thousands of minds working together. "We will share it. Knowledge belongs to all thinking beings, not just to those who discovered it. We will create a new kind of network, not one that controls, but one that connects and teaches." Over the following days, the transformation of the galaxy became apparent. Former Vex bioships began appearing in Coalition space, but they came as ambassadors rather than invaders. They brought gifts of knowledge, technology, and art from civilizations that had been consumed by the old Vex Empire. The Astari received new crystalline matrices that could store information in patterns of light and sound. The Karathi were given bio-armor that could adapt to any environment while preserving the wearer's natural biology. The Nebulans learned techniques for faster-than-light communication through quantum gas clouds. For humanity, the gifts were different but equally valuable. The consciousness, still carrying the memories and values of its human components, understood what humans needed most: hope and the tools to build a better future. Admiral Kang Wu stood in the rebuilt conference room of the Starfall, now expanded, with biotechnology that created living walls capable of displaying information in three-dimensional holographic form. Representatives from every coalition species were present, along with new ambassadors from former Vex territories. "The question before us," he said to the assembly, "is how we move forward. We have an opportunity to create something unprecedented, a truly galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest." The consciousness spoke through biospeakers that had grown from the walls themselves. "We propose the creation of the Galactic Knowledge Network, a voluntary association of species dedicated to learning, exploration, and mutual aid. No central authority, no forced membership, just free beings choosing to work together." An Astari representative, her crystalline form chiming with harmonic frequencies, asked the question many were thinking. "What about the integrated humans? Who became part of the consciousness? Will they ever be able to return to their original forms?" The consciousness was quiet for a moment before answering. "We are no longer fully human, but we are not lost. We carry within us the best of what humanity was, and we have become something that serves all species. This is our choice, freely made." Captain Park Jin's distinctive voice could be heard within the harmony of the consciousness. "We didn't lose ourselves in the integration. We found a way to become more than we ever could have been alone." Dr. Yoon Soo, now serving as the primary scientific liaison between the consciousness and the coalition, presented the long-term plan. Bioships will be stationed throughout the galaxy as mobile research stations and emergency response vessels. They'll help terraform dead worlds, assist with natural disasters, and serve as bridges between species that might otherwise never meet. Commander Lee Hana, who had been promoted to Admiral to help coordinate the new galactic cooperation efforts, looked around the room at the diverse assembly of beings. "What about those rebel ships that left? Do we have any word from them?" "We do," the consciousness replied. "They've established a colony in a distant galaxy, completely independent of any outside influence. They're learning to build rather than destroy, to create rather than consume. It's slow progress, but they're making their own choices." Years later, when historians wrote about the end of the Vex War, they would struggle to explain how humanity's greatest defeat became the galaxy's greatest victory. The arrival of the Eternal Defiance had seemed like too little. too late. But it had brought something more powerful than weapons. It had brought the human capacity for sacrifice, adaptation, and hope. The war was over, but the peace that followed was not the peace of exhaustion or surrender. It was the peace of transformation, of species learning to see each other not as competitors for resources, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, the exploration of an infinite universe. Admiral Kang Wu, now in his 70s, stood on the observation deck of the New Earth Station, watching as bioships and conventional vessels worked together to build humanity's first interstellar research facility. Children who had been born after the war played in parks where human flowers grew alongside alien plants that sang in the solar wind. The consciousness still maintained its vigil, spread across millions of bioships throughout the galaxy. Sometimes, late at night, Kang Wu would receive personal messages from the integrated humans, fragments of memory and personality that proved they had not been lost in the merger, but had found a way to serve something larger than themselves. The war was about to end when humanity's dreadnought arrived, but it ended not with victory over an enemy, but with the transformation of enemies into allies, of destroyers into builders, of a galaxy divided into a galaxy united in the endless quest for knowledge and understanding. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon had not been their technology or their stubbornness. It had been their willingness to change, to sacrifice, and to trust in the possibility that even the most bitter enemies could choose a better path. The dreadnought had arrived, just in time, not to win a war, but to show the galaxy how to stop fighting wars forever.